Hello, welcome to Business Diaries, where we find out why some businesses are successful when others fail. What is the key to their success? It is my pleasure to be here today to speak with a remarkable young woman named Janae Adams. She was able to pay off $50,000 worth of debt in just 2 years. She then went on to pursue a career nationally with universities, sharing her story with the students on how she did this remarkable feat. Janae, it's my pleasure to be here with you today. We are excited to hear all about your story.
And I'm glad to be here as well.
Yes. So if you can tell us, how did you accumulate that $50,000?
Well, it's a surprise to most people that I did graduate college debt-free because I went there on a full-ride tennis scholarship.
Oh,
but marriage and life happens, and so when I got married, my husband had $25,000 of student loan debt for
Surprise.
1 year. Yeah, surprise, as we're saying, I do. And then, of course, I had some into the last $25,000 of debt, which was a car, and so that's where the 50 grand came from, just like that.
So when you were looking at that insurmountable amount of money, as most of us would, if you had $50,000 worth of debt, I'm sure you would be very worried at that time. Did you set up a plan? Did you take certain steps to conquer it little by little? I'm interested to know, how were you able to just start on that path to paying it off?
Yeah, so really it was an emergency. I found out about the 50 grand of debt when I was laid off. And so I immediately started to take action and take step by step what I share in my book about how I paid a $50,000 debt off. But we did it as a husband and wife, and that what led to the business that I have today.
So Janae, I hear you say you have written a book.
Yes, I've written 2 books.
Okay.
The first Sucks University, and that is for high school and college students.
Did everybody hear that? Debt Sucks University.
Debt Sucks University.
That's a very catchy title.
It's very straightforward. And then for everybody else, those who are adults and well out of high school and college, I have the Money Attractor. So just to help people attract money into their lives and share my story once again of how I paid the 50 grand off.
So that's remarkable in itself, just writing a book, let alone 2 books. But you say that you started on this journey when you were laid off.
Yes.
So I'm interested to know, how does someone that has no income just set out to pay off not just $1,000, not $10,000, but $50,000? I mean, what was your starting point?
Well, my starting point was my dream sheet. And my dream sheet is short-term, intermediate, dreams. And I use that in my business when I work with clients as well as when I go to universities. Everybody gets that dream sheet. It's basically your why before I tell you the how. And so I had to get my why in front of me, and then I took the steps over the 2 years to pay the debt off.
So when you say a dream sheet, I assume that's similar to a vision board?
Yes, but it's one sheet that you put up on your refrigerator so that you see it each and every day. Your dreams that you are working towards while you're paying off the debt, so it keeps you focused.
And I think that's great. And I'm very much a visionary like that too. And I think it's very important to have images of the things that you want to accomplish in order to accomplish that. And to have a plan, because those who fail to plan to fail, as we all know. So, so you started this dream board.
Yeah.
Was your husband helpful?
Yes, yes. So we sat down together, we put both our dreams on the dream sheet. So those of you who have businesses, you have to involve that spouse, if you have one, in that dream sheet, because it's going to get you both to where you want to be, not only financially in your household, but also as a business.
And you were still attending the university when you were laid off and doing this dream board with your husband?
No, I had been out of college for a while. And then I had been in corporate America for 8 years by now. And corporate America decided one day they no longer needed my services. And that is what started me on an entrepreneurship journey as I was paying off that $50,000 of debt.
What were you doing in corporate America?
I was actually a pharmaceutical sales representative.
Pharmaceutical sales,
so after I got laid off and found out I was in the debt, I was laid off for 4 months before I was able to get another job in pharmaceutical sales. And that's when I started aggressively paying the debt off.
And did you have savings?
We only had a little bit of savings, and that kind of got us through the 4 months to really get back on track.
Was your husband working?
Yes, he was. He was a teacher at the time.
So you had a little bit of income coming in.
Yes, we had a lot of bills.
Okay, yes, I'm sure. I'm sure. And that's so scary. You know, I'm sure the average person, me included, you know, you look at, oh my gosh, I don't have any income coming in. I've got this huge debt, you know, I've got responsibilities. And how am I going to do this? But you know, you were diligent, you created that dream board, you had your husband to assist in the vision. So so 2 years it took you to pay off $50,000. Was it incremental? Did you say, well, I'm going to pay off $1,000, you know, every few weeks? What was your plan about that?
Well, it was basically making sure, first of all, you find the money. So we cut back on things within the household, and that brings the extra money. And then whatever extra money you're able to cut back on and get more of, you throw it at the debt. So it could be $100 here, it could be $50 there, it could be $1,000 1 month. Whatever it is, you throw it at it, and that's how you pay it off quickly.
That takes a lot of discipline.
It does.
Yeah, you know, cutting back on cable, cutting back on things that we as a society are used to. It takes a lot of discipline. Yes, very much. So, along the path, did you think? Now, you were a pharmaceutical rep. You probably. Maybe you had thoughts, maybe you didn't, that someday you would have these books and you would have this speaking tour that you're doing. Was that part of your dream board? Did you say, I'm going to pay off this money and then I'm going to be a successful businesswoman?
No, actually, when I was doing the dream sheet, I wanted to be in pharmaceutical sales to retirement. I never thought about being an entrepreneur. It was only towards the end of the day that people started asking me to speak. Then I said, maybe there's something in here. People actually want to pay me to share my story. And maybe I could turn this into a business, because I'm starting not to like pharmaceuticals anymore. And I want to make a difference in the world. And so that is what the layoff was, a blessing to get to where I'm at today.
Isn't that true? You know, so many successful entrepreneurs we hear, it was something that started them on that path, and a lot of times it's hardship, it's the loss of a job, it's you know, death in the family, something that inspired them. So how did people find out about you? You know, when you were on this journey, and you have all this debt and you're, you know, slowly chipping away and paying it off, and now people are inviting you to share your story with their students and probably other organizations and groups, I assume. How did they find out about you?
So it's always the closest people to you, because they're the ones who knows what you're going through. And so my mother actually invited me to my
good old mom.
My first speaking engagement, and it was at a women's retreat for a church. And she just said, well, you come talk to them, share your story. And I was like, okay, I'm still working in pharmaceutical sales. I'm not caring anything about being a business owner and being an entrepreneur. And so I said, okay, I'll come. And of course it was unpaid, but I shared my story, and everybody came up to me afterwards and saying, thank you so much. I never even thought about it that way. And I got a couple of other speaking engagements unpaid that way, through going through churches and so forth, that I didn't even ask for. Somebody, a friend of the family, asked me to come. And then when I started seeing the reaction from it, I said, let me try to see if I can get paid for this, and let me go to a population that needs it. And at the time, student loan debt was $1.1 trillion. And
when was that?
That was actually 8 years ago.
8 years ago. So you can imagine what it is now.
It is 1.6 now, and it's growing. So the need is getting bigger and bigger. At the time, it was already big enough. And I said, look at all these colleges around here. This is the first group I'm going to start with. And that's when I started reaching out to colleges to see if they wanted to have a speaker come in and help their students with their finances.
So, and that's amazing. I love stories of success. So, did you grow up here in Winston-Salem, and this university that you went to initially, where you had some student loan, was it here locally?
Yes, I was born and raised here, but I went on a tennis scholarship to South Carolina State University.
Okay, all right. And the university that well, you said that after you were speaking at the churches and kind of getting used to being a speaker, because of course public speaking can be very scary, right?
Yes.
It's not something that everybody can do. It's one of the top fears, evidently, for people. So you started to get very comfortable on your platform talking about how you did this, and then you said to yourself, this could be a successful business. Let me look at some universities that could use my story. Where did you go first, and how did you present yourself?
Yes, so I started sending out cold emails, and it's still something I do today. Because
what is it?
Cold emails. So you're finding the emails of people that can potentially be clients.
Okay.
And you're sending those emails out and then following up with a phone call.
Okay.
So I started that 8 years ago, and my first college that I spoke at was University of Mount Union. in Ohio.
Wow.
And yes, and I just found them, and a young lady who was in student government, she seen the email and she convinced her administration to bring me in. And that was my first speaking engagement with the University of Mount Union.
That is fantastic. So as like if I were working at a university and I were hiring a speaker, I would probably want to see maybe a website. I would want to see videos. I would want to know that the person that's speaking can do what they say that they're going to do. So did you have materials?
And I did. I had marketing materials before I emailed anyone. The website was done. I have business cards. I had a speaking reel that I had recorded. So when they seen the email, they said, okay, she speaks. This is her voice. This is how she looks. This is the message she's going to share. It's not going to be boring. It's going to be fun. It's not your usual financial literacy. And that is what got me hired. And I tell anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, you need to be prepared before you start asking people for money. I don't care if it's a little trinket that you're selling. You need to show people proof that you know what you're doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that story. So what was the reception from that first university? And after that, you know, first opportunity, did they refer you to another university? Yes,
so they had a great time. It was in a full auditorium. I usually speak to auditoriums full of students. And so a lot of students came up to me, asked me their own personal questions, because many students don't want to raise their hand and say, this is what's going on. So we get a few of those, but then afterwards the line forms and they're like, I have to ask you this question. Can you give me advice on that? And it really helped to get testimonials. So the testimonials from that one speaking engagement led to the next one.
I bet, I bet. So you started this, you said 8 years ago?
Yes, 8 years ago.
How many universities do you think you've spoken at to this date?
I can't even imagine. This year alone has been at least 25. So over 8 years, it's over 70,000 students.
That is amazing. So you do this full time then?
Yes, this is my full time. And once I saved my money up to walk away from corporate America, I haven't looked back since.
That is remarkable. And now, how does your husband handle his wife being away? Who's cooking the dinner?
Well, the good thing is that unlike most entrepreneurs, especially those who travel a lot, I do have a mother and mother-in-law here. So we're both born and raised here. So we moved back because of family before I even went into my business. And so whenever I leave, there's still a grandmother and two grandmothers there and a grandfather that can help us out whenever we need it. But my children are a lot older. They're 7 and 11, so they go to school all day.
Yes,
and so it's really on a few hours that he has to survive.
Well, you know, and as a single parent myself, you know, it is hard if you have to find a nanny or a babysitter. And then, you know, if you're struggling to pay off debt already, but then you have to pay for a babysitter and childcare, it's overwhelming.
Oh, it is, definitely, definitely.
So besides universities, what other organizations do you speak to?
So I speak to nonprofits, I speak to high schools, and I do financial wellness programs for corporations as well, because they have employees that also need financial wellness.
Right. You know, I love all of that, but I especially love that you speak in the high schools, because I really think that our kids need to have a solid understanding before they enter the world where mom and dad aren't paying all the bills of how to handle their money. I really don't think there's enough education about that.
No, it's not at all, and it's just not enough that's relevant. You know, there's a lot of education out there about how to have a credit score, how to get a house in the future, but you have kids that are trying to eat, and you have families that are trying to eat. So let's talk about financial literacy around that. And if you're teaching them in high school, by the time they get to college, life is a lot more easier and they don't drop out.
Now, when you teach the high schoolers, or you know, just schools in general, are parents invited? Can parents come and learn as well?
They can come if they want to. A lot of times, whenever I'm invited to high schools, it's just during the day for students, or it's with a different organization that caters to high school students, and they'll just do it. Sometimes I do parent programs through other organizations as well.
Now, going back to your books, the Debt Sucks books, that was the first one. Have they been successful?
Oh, they definitely have. They definitely have. A lot of people tout bestsellers and all this kind of thing, and I tell them my books get ordered in bulk because high schools order them, corporations order them in bulk, colleges definitely order them in bulk. So it'll be 200 sold at a time, 400 sold at a time.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I don't do any one-on-one sales, honestly. A lot of times if you follow me on social media, I barely ever promote my 2 books. And whenever I do, people are like, you have a new book? And it's been out for years. And it's like, because I sell them in bulk. And, you know,
Okay.
it might be an 800 sold here for a corporation or a couple of thousand. So that is why a lot of people don't know.
So, do you have a literary agent or a publicity manager? So how do you know where to target? You know, what I'm sure that's part of being successful is having the right people. I mean, of course, you've got your people at home to take care of the things at home, but you know, who's taking care of you know, all of these other needs while you're out speaking? And you know, you're speaking at one location. Who's booking the next one? Who's taking care of your flight details? Who's, you know, managing your website and your marketing materials? Who's doing all of this?
And surprisingly, it's me. And so it is.
That's not a surprise. You're an entrepreneur. Guess what? It's part of it.
And one thing that I learned from an entrepreneur, Damon John, who's on Shark Tank, he always said, you have to know every part of your own business before you start hiring other people. Because you can hire other people, and if you don't know your own business and different parts of it, they can be doing anything and bring your business down. So I know every aspect of my business. I know how to work with bookstores for my books. I know who to reach out in accounts payable if a check hasn't come in. And I do have a graphic designer. I don't do that. So my graphic designer does help with that. And then in the summer, I do have 2 interns that work with me, and they handle a lot of my social media. Not all of it, because I have to do a lot of my social media. I trust myself more than I trust anybody else. And even with the cold calls and the phone calls, because financial literacy, explaining it is so difficult, I'm the only one that can call somebody and say, and answer those hard questions. Yes, and so I've actually tried somebody before. It didn't work out very well because they couldn't answer those hard questions. So I am the one and only. Sometimes I do have a virtual assistant. I definitely have a graphic designer, but it's me doing the work.
Well, and I can only assume that as a former pharmaceutical rep, you were used to knocking on doors and some tough doors, doctors. Yeah, I've done that before. That's not the easiest door to knock on. So.
And I was a marketing major in college.
Perfect.
So business is in my blood, and I love it. And so, like you said, with pharmaceutical sales, it was cold calling there. And going in front of somebody who doesn't know anything you're about to say and try to sell them. So sending emails, cold calling, picking up the phone, that's easy for me.
Do you have like a, and you don't have to share it now, but do you have like in your head before you call somewhere almost like a 30-second pitch? Because people are so busy, and I'm sure they get called on by numerous people wanting them to buy their services. So do you have something that you present typically?
And this is advice I give to any entrepreneur. When you're sending out an email, that is your first point of contact. And it makes it easier when you call someone and say, I sent you an email, I want to make sure that it didn't go into your spam folder. And just introducing who you are, what the email was about, and then they start talking back to you, and it just becomes a lot easier.
And have you found it challenging to get to the right person?
Well, when I first started off. But now I have it to a science that I know exactly who the yes people are.
You can get past the gatekeeper.
I completely go past the gatekeeper. I never deal with someone who give me a no but can't give me a yes. I only deal with those that can give me a yes. And so that has become much easier over the last few years.
And how do you have certain questions? Because I know like when I used to call on doctors' offices and things of that nature, you know, I used to say to them, well, you know, is the decision maker here? Because of course you don't want to waste your time on the person that is just telling you no and really can't make any decisions. Do you have a way to filter to the right person then?
Yeah, so I'll say, who hires your speakers for this department? And they're like, well, you actually need to talk to this person. And sometimes that happens in the email. If I send an email, they say, well, actually, I'm not the person for speakers or for your academy or program. Let me send this to this person, and I will copy you on it. So sometimes it gets handled with the email. That's why the email is important to do from the beginning.
And I love going back to one of the initial things you said was to know your why. I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek, and he has a, you know, you have to know your why, and I think that's so important because it is easy to get off track, and you know, life is hard and you can get overwhelmed by so many things. So to stay constantly with that dream board, with that vision, knowing your why. Were there any tough times where you felt like giving up?
Yeah, definitely in the beginning, because this was a whole new industry for me, and I had, pharmaceutical sales pays a lot.
Yes, and you have benefits.
And you have benefits, you have a car, all of that stuff, and now I didn't have any of that, and I'm trying to get this business off the ground. But every time a student or someone online on my social media said, you helped me pay this credit card off, I'm never going to worry about credit cards again. You helped me save $1,000 that I never thought I could save. You helped me stay in school. I hear that a lot. Like they were about to give up, but they heard me speak and said, I'm going to keep going. So just hearing those stories at the beginning kept me going. And I even hear those stories now, just re-energizes me. If I have a bad day and somebody says, I really needed to hear what you said on Instagram today, it's going to keep me going. Like that happened actually yesterday. And I'm like, got to keep posting, got to keep going, got to keep getting in front of the camera whenever I can.
Right. I know that's so fulfilling when you hear something like that. You're the reason that I stayed in school. I really, that is. It's the definition of your why, because you said you want to help people. So,
definitely.
Do you have a limit on how many speaking engagements you'll do per year? Because I know there's certain. It could probably be hard to have work-life balance. How do you juggle?
And I always talk about work-life balance. It can be achieved. Like if I feel that the tilt is going a little bit this way, then I just flip it right off, and I say, okay, nope, not taking that speaking engagement because I need to do more at home. So the good thing about my business being established now, it's been 8 years, I can choose and pick things. And whenever I raise my price, that also takes away some of the stress as well, because it's putting those people who are not serious, that would take up a lot of my time, that puts them away. And that's something I would suggest to any business owner. Continually raise your prices so that you know exactly who needs to be in your circle. And that's the ones that need to hire you. But I always, if the balance is off, I tip it back the other way. So I usually, each month, maybe 2 or 3 speaking engagements I will do and throughout the year. And I have my tour usually set up by January 1st for the year. And I am building that up from the year before. So I'm already building up 2020 right now.
So you're a very confident person, clearly. You really are. And there has to be a certain level of confidence to be able to not only, get past the being in debt, being laid off, having this vision, this business, but also presenting yourself to others as someone credible. Because, and you're saying, you set a certain price limit for your speaking engagements. And, how do you know you're worth it? Like somebody that maybe isn't as confident would say, oh gosh, they would be afraid to say, well, I charge, so-and-so amount, and then think to themselves, oh gosh, did I outprice myself? Am I worth it? Did you ever have moments like that where you feel like, oh gosh, maybe I priced myself too high? Or
And that was more at the beginning, but once I got paid that first speaking engagement, and it was, no problem. I just kept going up from there, because you have to look at what your value is and the value you're bringing. And so let's take colleges, for example. If a certain college costs $40,000 a year to go to, and I keep one of your students in school, that's 40 grand I just made you. If I keep 10, I just made you 400 grand. So why not pay me?
So you spin it. You have a certain spin. Because, I being in sales myself all my life, people want to know why. Like you can sit there and present to them all kinds of reasons they should buy your product, but how is it going to help them?
How is it going to benefit them?
So I love what you just said, because you said, hey, your tuition's $40,000 a year. If I can keep one of your students going to your university, guess what? You've already paid for me, 100 times over.
Exactly. So, especially when you get into the 400 grand and a couple of millions, because in my audience is 100+ people. I mean, I've had a whole entire freshman class of 2,500. So imagine if I get every single one of them at your price at this private university to next year. I've made you millions of dollars in 1 hour.
Do you still speak for free to nonprofits?
No,
nobody. Okay, so forget it. You can't hire her for free.
And I mean, some of my friends, if they have some things, then I would do some things for them. But mostly, if you'll pay somebody else, then you can pay me. And that's what I tell people all the time. I said, you're going to pay somebody else, you can pay me. And a lot of times, especially if I ever speak locally, I don't usually speak locally. I speak a lot of times out of the state. and internationally. But whenever I do, they know that it's going to bring a draw to me because I'm on the news every 2 weeks. So people know my face. They know what they
What
see.
news? What
so
news?
I am on WFMY.
WFMY,
News too.
okay.
Yeah, every 2 weeks I do their money segment.
Great.
So I've done that for over 3.5 years
Great.
now. So even yesterday I went to a meeting. People were like, "Oh, I can't believe you're here. I see you on the news. The advice you share is so great." And so that's going to be a draw already. Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of times when people, even if it's a nonprofit, they charge for people to come.
I bet.
Yeah, so
oh, yes.
they're charging so they can pay. Yeah.
No, I don't work for free anymore. No.
Yeah.
So you have a website. What's the name of your website?
So I have 2 websites.
Okay.
One is The Money Attractor.
The Money Attractor.
Yes.
TheMoneyAttractor.com.
TheMoneyAttractor.com, and that is the one for individuals who are looking to do better with their money.
Okay.
The one that's for my speaking is DebtSucksUniversity.com.
All right, okay.
So that is where the speaking and everybody goes to see video reel and to see my blog and those kind of things are on there as well.
I was just going to ask if you blog as well, if you write a blog.
I blog, I YouTube, and I podcast.
When do you sleep?
Exactly, not much, but that's what I do to get a different outlet.
Right.
Yeah, and to talk about deeper subjects than I would on stage.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what are your plans for the future?
My plans for the future, I am never going to retire from this. Warren Buffett, he's going to die in what he does, and I think that's what I'm going to do. This is my passion. I'm always going to be, it doesn't even have to be speaking. It can be writing, it can be podcasting, it can be just doing lives on social media.
Great.
But I'm always going to be sharing this information, trying to help other people. So there's going to be no retirement. There's just going to be expansion of it. So I started off just speaking. Now I have an academy for colleges and high schools. I have a financial wellness program for corporations. I have an online academy and online portal. It's online courses. It just continues to evolve and to help more people, not only here in the States, but internationally. So I have customers in Austria and the Netherlands and Europe and all over Europe.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I am just floored by all of this and inspired as well. If you had some parting words, or is there a quote or something inspirational that you think about that you repeat to yourself that's meant something to you, and something that you can leave with the audience that is important to you? What is that?
I would say that you only have one life.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that. And you don't want to have any regrets in the future. So do what you want to do now. And if finances is an issue, just get them under control. And once you get them under control, you can do whatever you want. I said no for 2 years while paying off that $50,000 of debt, and now I say yes for the rest of my life.
That's fabulous. Well, I am so happy to have had the chance to talk to you. I'm actually going to start looking you up and learning from all of the things that you've done. But what a remarkable story that is. Everyone loves a good old story of success, especially right here in Winston-Salem and abroad. But thank you so much.
And thank you for having me as
well. Of course. It's been my pleasure. We just want to say a huge thank you to my guest today, Janae Adams. It has been such a pleasure to speak to you here on Business Diaries. This is actually our first episode, and we look forward to having many prolific entrepreneurs such as yourself in the future. But thank you so much for giving us this kickstart, Janae.
And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we look forward to having more small businesses such as yourself sharing their stories of success and ideas and key points to help the rest of us, if we also have questions, how we can be successful in business. That's our goal here at Business Diaries.